They come in with unsubstantiated facts.
Absolutely.
They talk over each other. The one with the loudest voice wins.
Read a Bible in the house. If you don't have a prayer life in the house, your lifestyle is different in the house and different in the church. So kids learn from parents. And
people think, oh man, it's just a Bible meter. Well, I hate to tell you, but if you're going to be involved with Christianity, and it is a lifestyle, if you want to achieve your goals, get other people involved, by what do you want to do? Boom, I'm saved, I'm sanctified. No, man, the battle's just starting because Satan looks around and says, hey, what are you doing over here, man? Come here, we're gonna. The good thing about journaling is it makes you very self-aware. You talk about idols in your life. You talk about TV, you talk about, I'm hooked on social media, I'm da. Well, guys, come on. Is that getting in the way of where you want to be or where you need to be? If you're going to be successful in a corporation, especially if you're going to be successful in building your own business, you've got to be disciplined. After a while, time, you forget a lot of the bad things. You learned a whole lot about analysis. You learned a whole lot about pattern recognition. You learned a whole lot about different things.
Did you ever involve in any combat or something like that?
There were a few times. One time I was asleep. I'll never forget this.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to The Deep, and we have a guest in the house. The man of God, the man who I look up to. He's, you can say, the man who speaks. Whenever he opens his mouth, I always say to him, I listen of wisdom. Wisdom comes from your mouth, and I'm so excited. Let's put your hand together for the Skie. Hey, Skie, what's up?
Hi, my name's Skie. I'm real name Elwin Roziski.
Yeah.
And but everybody's always called me Skie.
Skie, yeah.
So, but I recently, I'm a retired engineer. And I also served in the Air Force. Spent a lot of time overseas with different projects in different countries. Eventually hitting 22 different ones. So most of them were done with out with the people that lived in the countries, and they were things like schools, clinics, things like that. We also repaired airports where we'd actually go out and we trained in our skills, but we also helped other people too. Mm-hmm. So it was a great event. And after 9/11, I was a reservist for a lot of the time, but after 9/11, they pulled me back in, and I was finished out in 2016. And my last position was running the day-to-day operations of the air base in Miami.
Wow.
So after that, returned to Texas to Castroville, and since then I've just been trying to pay back and pay back and help other people get where they want to go and do what they want to do. So it's been a great ride so far, and I've probably still got a few days left, please Lord, and and we'll go from there.
Yeah, but thanks for this wonderful introduction. And when I listened that you serve in the Air Force, how was your experience serving in Air Force?
I had a little bit of a different experience in the Air Force. I started out in the Army and spent 10 years in the Army. I was a combat engineer, and went through airborne training and Ranger training. Got deployed a couple of times to do some work overseas, and then in 1984, I transferred to the Air Force, and what I wanted to do was actually get into heavy construction, and I joined a unit called Red Horse, which it's an acronym, but what they are is a heavy construction unit with worldwide responsibilities.
Okay.
And the good thing about it was we were fully equipped at our unit, so we could actually do everything that we needed, train on everything we needed to do. Wow. And we deployed a lot of our equipment, so we learned how to get it on ships, get it on railroads, get it on planes and everything.
Did you ever involve in any combat or something like that?
There were a few times I was in, we had, when I was in one country, they had a lot of guerrilla problems. And
seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had to work around that. The group, we were deployed in 2.5 week intervals, and the group before me had some experiences. I figured it out, and we didn't have any at all. So then the group behind me, they had some difficulties. But a lot of times it's analyzing the threat and then doing what you need to do to minimize it. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so the time I spent in the Army was well gained because you learned a whole lot about analysis, you learned a whole lot about pattern recognition, you learned a whole lot about different things and all that.
And you have gone through all those things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I always seen in the movies, the force, how they go and do the mission, and I was like, wow, that's something to, listen more from the person. So tell me something, like any good or worse experience you have in your while you were in the force.
After a while, time, you forget a lot of the bad things. But the good things were we did a lot of work, especially with water wells.
Oh, okay.
And when you go to, we did a lot of work in Central and South American countries, especially, which is great because I always felt like those are the nations in our backyard, and we should be protecting them and building relations and everything else with them, rather than letting other people do it. And and now we're seeing a resurgence of that. But we did, like I said, we did a lot of schools, we did a lot of clinics. We in the Republic of Panama in 1 year, 1992,
wow.
I think we rehabbed about 250 wells.
Oh, wow.
And the thing you learn when you go to different countries is
1992.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just 3-4 years old that time.
Well, don't worry. I go to units. The guy said, "Yeah, I was a member of that unit." Really? When? I said 1980, and the guy kind of looks down and said, "I know. You weren't born yet. We're good."
Yeah.
The first weapon I qualified on was not the bow and arrow, so just we're good. The thing is, you learn that in a lot of different countries, they get by on a whole lot less than we do. And pure water and clean water that's drinkable, that's potable, in a lot of places it's a luxury. Mm-hmm. And when I was deployed to Egypt, one of the guys said, "Hey, we've got to run back to the headquarters and check." Well, they were in a hotel downtown. It was a 4-star hotel, and they had a little gold plate in the bathroom that said, "This, do not drink. The water is not potable." I'm like, okay. And there were some countries where they had no potable water at all. They're just strictly on bottled water. So,
wow.
Yeah, so you had to be flexible and you had to adjust and you had to have an idea. You had to have a mind for logistics if you were.
Why I'm asking this question is because I'm a huge fan of Air Force, and when I was growing in a small town, and I keep seeing the jets are flying, and in India usually we have 26th of January we celebrate, and there was some air show happening, and I was like, "Dad, I love the planes and jets," and I was like, the sound. I'm still a huge fan, but God want me to be here and preach the gospel. My destiny has something for me. What I was thinking that I'm gonna be maybe in a force or in a Navy service, but I think God has a different plan for me. So, but I'm really excited to when I meet you first time. 2 things I will admit about the Skie that I have seen in his life is, number 1, the discipline, and number 2, the way he speaks. I think this is the core of the Air Force, and I'm not just talking about force. I think it's for any military. 2 things are very important: is being disciplined, organized, and being in just be on time. That's something I have seen in you from the day one. And I think this is a core what they teach in the Air Force, right?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be in the Army right after Vietnam. And the interesting thing about that was I enlisted in '74, and the thing about it was back then they had a corps of NCOs and a corps of instructors, and they said, "We did not do well. We're not going to do that again." So they were really hammered us, if you will, to be disciplined and everything else. But that was a good thing. But I've got private sector experience too, and that carries over into that perfectly. Because if you're going to be successful in a corporation, especially if you're going to be successful in building your own business, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to figure out what your obstacles are. And you talk about idols in your life. You talk about TV. You talk about, I'm hooked on social media. I'm Well, guys, come on. Is that getting in the way of where you want to be or where you need to be?
Absolutely, I agree. You are a guy who write a journal, right? You do journaling. And I have seen every time when you come to the men's meeting, you carry your diary, a small diary, and you take a notes. You do Bible journaling as well. So what are you journaling nowadays?
What I did was this year I decided I'm going to reread the Bible again. Normally I do in-depth studies of it, and that was great. But I said, okay, it's time to refresh refresh
yeah,
the
yeah.
mind again. And what I do is, I'm not a big Bible reader. I'm a big Bible studier.
Wow.
And what I do is I've got a reading plan, and I just go work through it. And I've got my notebook right next to me. And if there's a verse
Yeah.
that means something to me that day, I stop, write the verse down, and then I write, okay, what does this, one, what is he saying to me? And the second thing is, how am I going to apply this in my life?
Oh, that's so important, I think. So.
And, yeah, and that's, and so, you've got to be, the good thing about journaling is it makes you very self-aware. And if you're doing it right, if you get up, I'm the best I can be. God, you're lying to yourself. Come on, you can always get better. You can always be better at something.
But the question comes is that, like for if I'm asking as a viewer perspective, that a lot of people, they don't have a habit of writing journal.
Yeah.
How they will practice those things? Or maybe they want to learn how to start the journaling.
Make it part. Well, I've got, what I did was I got tired of looking at the packages that come out from other people and everything else. So I've got several AI apps that I use. So I just got one and I said, okay, this is what I want. And I said, I want a complete guide of, and what I do is I use the Bible as my guide, and that sets everything there.
Yeah.
But there are some useful tools in in some of the Stoicism, that sort of thing, where how you and they believe people think Stoic. Oh man, there's this guy with no feelings. Yeah. No, if you read back on it, if you study it, it says that I think it was Marcus Aurelius said that people are our most important duty. That is I've found that, and that kind of drove me to, so anyway, I said, okay, give me something. And what it does is it breaks it down. There are four Stoic beliefs. You've got justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance.
Yeah.
And so anyway, you just ask yourself basic questions. Did I treat this person justly today? Wow. I had this little interchange, and did I do this right today? And it ties right into the gospel because if you're doing what the gospel requires, you're gonna feel all those things. But it's constantly fine tuning exactly how you deal with people.
One thing I really like you said is that you don't just read the Bible, you study the Bible. So what do you can you just simplify what does it mean by reading a Bible and studying the Bible?
Studying a Bible to me is where you look at word by word, and I've got Noah Webster's dictionary from 1828, which is on and it's not a modern dictionary.
I was not in existence.
It is, but it is very accurate.
Oh, yeah.
And he uses, and as a matter of fact, he uses when he's defining a word, sometimes he uses Bible verses to show the proper usage.
Wow.
So I use that, and what I do is if I run into a word that, sanctified. Okay, what does sanctified mean to you? Well, it means that I'm pure. It means that I'm working toward what God considers to be righteous and that. And you got to realize it's not a day-to-day. It's not a boom, I'm saved, I'm sanctified. No, man. The battle's just starting because Satan looks around and says, hey, what are you doing over here, man? Come here. We're gonna hey, I got this movie you ought to see. But what I do when I study is I look at it and I say, okay, do I know what this word means? And I'll look it up. No, okay, yep, okay. I also look at the context, because you've got to figure out who Christ is talking to. You got to figure out what their background is, and sort of thing. So you can come through with one of my favorite Bible verses. Is where in Judges, I think it's Judges 3, where Solomon is praying for wisdom, and God comes to him in a dream and said, "What do you want?" He said, "Lord, I'm just a child. I want you give me the wisdom to govern this great people of yours."
Yeah.
And he said, wow. He said, well, since you didn't ask me for riches or a long life or the death of your enemies, I'm going to give you what you ask for as well as all that.
Wow.
So, and so anyway, just like, So that became one of the ways that I dealt with a lot of situations. And it's like I always tell people, if you're taking over an organization, and when I retired, I had an organization of just over 1,000 people. But what did I do? I had about 10 direct reports, and I worked through them. So what I did was just made sure that they were, they were headed the right direction and everything else and moved from there. But what I tell folks all the time is that if you want to achieve your goals, get other people involved, by what do you want to do? What are your career goals? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3? What can I do to help? And in a lot of cases, it's like, okay, I can understand that and everything else. And but if you want to do that, I'm going to need some performance because I just don't write flowery statements. This is what the guy did. This is what he's capable of, and I believe he. And one of the big things that we had was that was in the Air Force was attending Air War College in residence. And of the people that I recommended, I had 100% fill rate. I mean, they were there.
Oh.
Why? Because a lot of guys would write 1 or 2 sentences. I'd write 1 or 2 pages of what they have done, what their capabilities were, and everything else, as well as what their potential was. And we go from there. I'd also follow up, with, hey, you got the application? Everything good? When should we expect a phone call? So in a lot of cases, it's just helping people be all that they can be, and and so that just comes from that one part of the Bible. And the thing is, you've got to realize, and you've got to, in my mind, studying the Bible is, you say, okay, this is what applied to him.
Yeah.
How does it apply to me, and what can I do? And there are 3, in my mind, there are 3 parts. There's reading, there's interpretation, and there's application. Wow. So you read it, you interpret what it means, and I've got a piece of software that you can, over the course of time, I've got 13 different commentaries, and I can pull them up and say, okay, for this particular verse, what does it mean? What does it mean?
So
to
you go to each 13 commentaries for the one?
No, not really. Just until I find one that explains what I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you get one, that's fine. That's fine. It's a lot better than just especially if you're beginning. Because there are a lot of things out there that you won't understand, and you've got to be able to interpret it from a historical standpoint. You've got to be able to interpret it from a geographic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, and also from their particular religious standpoint.
I remember last time I was taking this guidance from you because we were discussing when we were standing outside the church, and I asked the same question to you, and you tell me that see the Bible through all the lenses, history, geography, and that's a great way to study. I mean, that's like you are digging deeper and you are laboring in the Word, and which the Bible completely says that you have to go deeper in the Word and study, and that's the great way to study the Word.
And one of the other things is when you're dealing with the Old Testament, there are a lot of things in there that there were dietary laws and everything else, and they were there for a reason, because if you're going to be in the desert for 40 years, you've got to have some public health, if you will, and that's sort of thing. So that's a lot of that is there. But it's like I tell folks, they say, well, the Old Testament says this, put people to death. I said, well, you've got to understand that in that particular situation, in that particular context, there are 3 things you look at, and I was taught to look at: 1, was it a civil law? 2, was it a moral law? Or 3, was it a ceremonial law?
Yeah.
And so you could look at it through those different lenses also. But people think, oh man, it's just a Bible meter. Well, I hate to tell you, but if you're going to be involved with Christianity, and it is a lifestyle in my mind.
Wow, that's so true.
You've got to, it's not just I'll just hit it on Sunday and we're good. Well, that's like saying I'm going to eat once a week. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
So, but if you're going to live it as a lifestyle, you've got to, and that's the only proper way to do it. You'll be a lot better off. Because you talk about the rewards of the rewards of being a Christian. It gives you it's like I talk about it all the time. I said, Bible is kind of like the Bible it provides a scorecard and guardrails, and the guardrails keep you focused on the path, the right path, the narrow path, where you and if you're making decisions and you've got a lot of people that have their own little games that they're playing and everything else. And, the questions I always used to ask was, who's going to lose out of this and who's going to gain? And, it's kind of like one of those things, well, I'm sorry guys, but we're just not doing that.
That's so
And-
true. That's so true. Actually, that's so true. You know that Christianity is not just about saying you are Christian. It's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It has to be seen in your life. I mean, like it's not like once in a week you come in the church and you are like, hey, I'm a believer. That's it. And the rest of the day you are not focused about. And in fact, I'm seeing this nowadays a lot that the new generation, they are not church friendly nowadays. They don't want to involve in the church. They don't want to be in the participate in the church. And I think I will not say that the kids have any problem, but I will say that as a parent, if parents doesn't read the word, if they do not follow the Bible, what the Bible says, kids learn from their house.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge what right now I'm seeing our generation is facing, that we always put a blame game that because these youths are not coming in the church, they are busy in their sports, they are busy in their work. It's not about they are busy. It's like you have never done those things. You have never bring kids to the church. You have never read a Bible in the house. If you don't have a prayer life in the house, your lifestyle is different in the house and different in the church. So kids learn from parents, and if parents are not taking initiative to come church and meditate and learn from the word and allow kids to come and learn, how they will grow. I mean, like that's the biggest difference, and that's what you were saying, that someone lifestyle has to be should be not one day show. It's not a movie theater just you come for 2-3 hours and like, oh wow, that's it, then you're back to your field. So yeah, that's very important. What do you think about this? Because I think new generation is going really in a different dimension. I mean, like it's just crazy what they are believing.
Well, it is. And I think, I can tell you they're searching. The thing is, you've got to provide something for them to find.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people have to ask themselves. What are they looking for? What can we do to help you with that?
Yeah.
And I think that youth is the place to start, because teenage years, I'd hate to go through those again. It was confusing. It was confusing. You didn't have the worldview that you have today and the experience you have today, and that sort of thing. So I think that they're searching, and I think that it's up to the church to find some way to channel that into the church itself, because eventually they're going to, and that's a question you've got to ask. I mean, let's look back on somebody, Julio Iglesias. How did he become a singer? How did he become one of the greatest singers of all time?
Yeah.
Really simply, he was a world-class soccer player, played on the Spanish national team, and got injured. So in the hospital, he learned to play the guitar, and boom, there we are.
Yeah.
So eventually, guys, you're going to be out of the sports. You're going to be. I mean, I played rugby for 5 years, and it taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about and. Somebody said, well, was it tough? I said, well, let's put it this way. We started with a 5-mile run, and then we did practice. Whoa! It was great, but eventually you learn, you go, is that all there is? And
I mean, like, that's an important thing. Are you on a social media, on any platforms? Or
No.
No? Okay, so you must not be, like, you're not aware about this, what is happening on the social media. So yesterday I was scrolling on social media. So I came across one viral video. So I don't know, have you heard the name called ft.Skie? No?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy who's a social media influencer. Mm-hmm. So he made a skit. So he do the skit of a mega church. So how today mega church is after, so he's basically portraying an entire skit. Mm-hmm. And if I will forward you that video, you guys, you have to watch.
Okay.
So he's not mocking on God, but I don't know, a lot of people have the different opinion. Some of them are saying that he's mocking on God, and some of them are saying that he's mocking on a pastors or the leader. So that guy is like, he stood up and he made the skit of one mega church studio. They make the studio of a mega church, and it's look like they are he become the pastor of the mega church, and he is having all the gold chains and wearing like money, and he was asking money in the name of, so he's like portraying a picture that what is happening in the ministries, what is happening in the churches, and what are happening in the mega churches. And it was like a war is happening on the social media. There was two group of people are like crazy war is happening. I don't have a video right now, I will show you. So it's like now that guy has become a hero for a lot of Christian believers, and a lot of Christian people stood up and so happy that he addressed those things, which I completely believe that a lot of ministries and mega church pastors, they are not putting a foundation of God. They're least bothered about preaching gospel. They're more focused about making money of the ministry. Your thoughts on that? If you know that there was one pastor in Texas, or maybe he was I think so. He was in a jail now for some rape or something like that.
I think that was in the Dallas area.
Oh yeah. So a lot of nowadays, frequently pastors are being caught, or maybe they are caught in some wrong things. Or what are your thoughts on that? Because why I'm asking this question, Skie, is because a lot of new Gen Z generation is watching, and they have now, like I said, that video has in a two group. One group of people is totally against the church nowadays, and one group of people are totally against what they are saying. So it's like a war is happening. So I want to make people mind clear that yes, even though what things are happening, what should be our response there?
Well, the response is, my response has always been, to pray for him. And, and you can sit here and you can, did you hear about so-and-so?
Yeah.
Well, but the thing about it is, we all fall. We all sin. If you want to find a group of people that's just totally off the wall, take a look at some of the people you listen to, some of the people's music you listen to.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, so, it's one of those things where I think the further, just in my mind, and it was one of my great, when I led large groups, one of my greatest things was, I took a look at it one day, and you only remember the top 10% and the 10% of the problems, and everybody else is kind of in the middle of the bell curve. Yeah. So what I'd do is I'd get out and I'd talk to people a lot. I mean, it's kind of funny because I just leave the office, go out, meet them where they were. Hey, what are you doing? Da 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 da. Oh, great. All that, and I'd have a pretty good idea of where they should have been and what they were doing. But go out there and just see who they were, what they were doing, and all that other good stuff. I think that once you reach the mega church, when you reach that level of membership, the way they do it is they work a lot with small groups. The problem becomes you can't, and that's when I sang in two choirs in South Florida, and I sang publicly at several events, and my signature song was the Old Rugged Cross.
Oh,
and I like the part about laying your trophies down. Mm-hmm. The sooner you surrender the ego and the plane and the car and your rank. I mean, when I went through Ranger training, the first thing they did was take your rank off, so you're all Rangers. And it's the same thing. We're all Christians. We're all going to have those moments. And if people are sitting there throwing rocks at him, just look in the mirror and see how many times have you failed.
Yeah.
And you got to remember where you came from. You've got to remember that. You've got to remember how we were. You've got to remember our duty, which is to love people enough to bring them out. There's an old Irish saying that there's no sin to be born in the dust, but it's a terrible thing to stay there.
Yeah, that's so true.
So the thing about it is, pick them up, get them out of the dust, and bring them in. Don't sit there and say, "Hey, man, we still love you," and everything else. You can just stay there. If you're going to be an effective Christian, there are certain things you got to give up. Mm-hmm. There's a cost to that, and Christ even said that. Count the cost of following me. And he had he on several occasions when he was dealing with the rich young lord, where he said, well, I've got to bury my parents. No, he was waiting for his parents to die so he could get the inheritance. But the Lord said, hey, look, you want to follow me? And he walked away and said he walked away disappointed, and so it's one of those things where I'm sure that in the big scheme of things, we've all done things that we're not proud of, we're not happy with, but there comes that point in time when you just say, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't go these places, I don't hang out with those people, I don't drink that, I don't, do those things. And, and you'd be surprised at how it kind of straightens your life out, how it makes you more effective in being what God wants you to be. Mm-hmm. And you can't, you just can't, it's like I said, you can't serve two masters. Take your pick.
Yeah.
And, you may not be called upon to die for your faith, but the Lord expects you to die every day to your desires, because those get in the way a lot when you're trying to serve.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, it's like as simple as that. But we have to make a call. I mean, like it's all on us. What we are listening, what is going inside. It's all on us that if I'm seeing those things, where my heart is, because that's what the Bible says. Where your heart, there is your, you are there. Your mind is there. So, yeah, it's all on us that what you choose to listen and what you choose to, or what you allow it goes in your life. That's the very, I think that's a very important thing. But at the same time, we were talking a few days back, and I was sharing this incident happened while I was walking on the street, and I remember.
Boy, that's wild.
So that was my first wild experience, and that dude has now, like, I don't know, he must be watching or not, but that dude become crazy. He became angry when I start saying that, hey, you are contradicting our Bible. So incident was like, so group of people standing on the street, and they were preaching heresy. They were preaching that only few certain people are going heaven, rest of them are dying here. I mean, like, and then I stood up and I start quoting from the scripture, and it was like debate is happening, and everybody was on the street. Like when I was there, I was the only guy. I was standing and listening what he's preaching, because he has like 7-8 people in his group, and they were like shouting. Read it. And I was like, what the guys are doing? And the cops were there, and cops were moving, and everybody on the street was moving. But when we come into the debate, oh boy, then things got changed. And I was so much into the debate, because so he was holding a right Bible. So I was thinking must be he has a different Bible, but no, he was holding a right Bible, but he was manipulating from the Bible.
Yeah.
So he is actually standing on the street and preaching that only certain number of the people which mentioned in the Bible, like 1,66,000, he's saying that these people are only going heaven, rest of them are dying here. And my question was that then why Jesus died for entire humanity?
Yeah.
If he want to save only 1,66,000, then why Jesus died on the cross for entire world? Because John 3:16 says something different.
Yes, it does.
And there we go. We have a hot debate there. Maybe I will put a footage here. So on the street, and I remember when things got a little bit hotter, and I look back, there was a huge crowd standing behind me, and all our youths, and they were like, preach it. Come on, Bible. I was like, what? Who is behind me? Because when I was debating, there was no one. And because debate was going so loud, a lot of people surround us, and they start listening. And that dude had become like a little bit frustrated, because what he was preaching, he was thinking that nobody knows from the Bible. And he's preaching, and that's the loophole I'm coming to discuss with you, is that's why we need to read the Bible. We need to study the Bible, because anybody can stand up and start saying something which is not in the Bible. We start believing that.
Yeah.
And they're like twisting your faith, and we just go in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And you see that when you see that after Christ's baptism. Where did he go? Out to the desert to be tempted. And what does Satan do? Well, you can do this and this and this. I'll give you this and that. And he said, no. He said, the Bible says. He said, no, it is written.
Yeah.
3 times, it is written. Which means you better get in the Word, you better study it, you better understand it.
Yeah.
Second thing is, I don't think we debate enough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They've got a group in I think it's the Oxford Union and in England, and they have a lot of debates. You can find them on YouTube, that sort of thing. But they had one with an Episcopal priest, and he was a conservative priest, and they would not ordain him. So, but he was there, and he had a very effective debate with people there, and I think, and there are 2 things. If you look at the way a lot of these news programs are set up, or these quote unquote panels that they have, there's no organization into it.
Yeah.
One, they come in with unsubstantiated facts.
Absolutely.
They talk over each other. The one with the loudest voice wins.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
you need a controlled, sensible debate where you can sit there and people get the opposing sides, both opposing sides, and you make your own decision.
And have you heard about Ravi Zachariah?
Yes.
I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of Ravi Zachariah.
Yeah.
And then Charlie Kirk, the debates they do, the way they answer, it's like, I mean, like, That's something we all need to learn. It's like you have to be in the Word. You have to know what we call ourselves as a Christian, but we do not know the values of the Christian. That being a Christian is not about wearing cross or going in the church. It's about know your roots.
Yeah.
You should know your Bible, everything. I mean, like if somebody asks you, you are like blank. And I was amazed when the debate was happening. The guy was speaking on the street and preaching heresy, and openly he's preaching, and a lot of people are listening, and a lot of people are walking, and they're don't bother about it. And I was like, it pinched my heart, bro. I am a pastor. I am a leader. It pinched my heart, and I stand there and start saying what you're preaching is wrong.
Yeah.
Then people start believing, and I remember that when the conversation is happening, one young boy came behind me and he speak to me, and there was a girl also. They both came to me and say, he's not preaching right. I say, yeah. The focus of Christ is not to set only certain group of people free from their sin. That's the message we want to deliver with this podcast as well, that Christ has died for everyone. Jesus is for everyone. Saving is for everyone. And if you believe in Christ, you are saved. The main purpose of God is not to judge or condemn you. Because what John 3:16 says, Father so loved the world that he gave his only son for us.
Yeah.
So his purpose was not to condemn you, but to bring closer to God. Mm-hmm. But the guy is trying to preach heresy, and he's become frustrated because he knows what he's preaching. He's not preaching from the word.
Well, let's look at the crowd dynamics for a second. The way you described it is people were coming and going and everything, and he's up here just screaming and yelling and all this other good stuff. People started stopping when you when you started calling him out and said, hey, this is what the Bible says. And people stopped and started listening.
Yeah.
I think that they recognized what he was doing. I think that also God's hand was in this, where he said, hey, he's speaking the word.
Yeah.
Hey, get over here.
Absolutely, because so 5 minutes I was standing and listening to that guy, I was just across the street because he was holding a mic and he was too loud. And I was listening and I was like, okay, he's preaching. And then I come close to him and he was like, hey, what's your name? I say, my name is Adesh. Okay. Where are you from? I'm from India. Okay. Do you believe in Christ? And I was like, yeah, I believe in Christ. Oh, that's great. Are you going heaven? Sure. No. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, what? How you can doubt?
Way to pick that out for me. Yeah, we're good.
You just put oil in the flame now. I say to the cameraman, I don't know if it's recorded. I say to cameraman, do not turn off your camera now. Just put your camera on my screen and I'm put my camera on him and let's have debate there. My question is that nowadays heresy and the false teachings are spreading like a virus.
Yeah. And if you read Revelation, that's a sign of the last times.
Absolutely.
And you tie in if you tie in Romans, I think it's Romans 12, same thing.
Yeah.
So it's to be expected. Mm-hmm. And there's a book out there. I forget the name of it, but I've got 2 copies of it. Because there were 3 parts to it. It's a watch, judge, and act. Mm-hmm. So you see what's going on, you judge if it's true or not, and then you act upon that. And I think that that's what people have to do. You've got to know the Bible so you can sift out the apostasy that's going on.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of apostasy out there. And it's like I tell folks all the time. I said the culture. If you look at the Roman culture, and I took 2 years Latin in high school, and then did some reading afterwards and everything else, and have kept up with it. But if you look at the Roman culture, wow, it was entirely hostile to everything that Christians believed in.
Wow.
I mean, guys had 28 wives, 28 different wives. The divorce was just rampant. Women were the same way. I mean, it was just. If you didn't want your child, you just left them out. I mean, so a child when it was born had to be accepted. You had to, yes, I accept this child. Yeah.
Wow.
And, so you see a lot of parallels, and the thing I tell people all the time is that being a Christian is you're going to be counterculture. Christ came in and he didn't like what the Pharisees and the Sadducees were doing. You've got Paul he had problems with the Jews. He had problems with Judaizers. He had problems with all sorts of different challenges there. So you're going to have those, and but you've got to be able to identify it for what it is. And even then, I was reading one analysis of it, and they said that Constantine and Constantine accepted the Christian, said the Christian faith is, I think it was in 317, said the Christian faith is now the faith of the empire.
Oh, wow.
And somebody said, well, that was brought about by because he had to do something to calm the legions down. And I said, what do you mean? And I went back and read it, and it said that what the Romans would do is they'd show up, and if you were a Christian, they'd just gather you in a group and they'd run you off the nearest cliff. And the thing about it was, these people were just totally calm. Hey, I'm going to a better place. I'm going to, and, they said it was having a real impact on the legionnaires themselves, because they were like, what did they have that I don't have?
Oh.
And so, they were getting, so anyway, it was their faith. So they were becoming converted, and he thought, I better grab this by the handles before it gets out of hand. So he just, so anyway, that was one of that input, that was what they did. So there was some historical background to it, but that's always stuck in my mind, that the church has always been countercultural, because it drifts from biblical truth.
Yeah.
And these days, with all the different communications means and all the different platforms that you have, it's especially important that you curate your sources. You're familiar with who's sending the message.
Yeah.
2, you're familiar with what the message means. And 3, I always like it to be biblically focused. And we had this discussion in Bible study a couple weeks ago, and one guy said, "Well, how do you belong to it? He said, what do you do with a denomination that he was talking about different denominations?" And I said, "Well, look, my thing is this: if you've got a denomination whose doctrine is not biblically focused, I'd find a new one."
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah,
that's so true. No doubt about it.
I mean, I had when I was in Georgia. No, Florida. I was at church one time, and there was a new guy, and I said, I talked to him a couple of times, and I said, "Man, glad to have you as a member here." And he said, "Well, I belong to another church, and they were just all about love." He said, "After talking to you guys for a couple of times, I realized they were loving me straight to hell." Because it was kind of like, "Oh yeah, we're all sinners. Don't worry about it, man." Well, yeah, worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, God worries about it. That's why He sent His only Son down here to die for us.
That's so true. That's so true.
So it's one of those things where, I just want to tell them in love. Well, I hate to tell you guys, but sometimes you have to sit down and say, look, here's where you are. Here's where you're going to end up.
Absolutely.
And lots of times I do that. Just kind of like, okay, look, I've been down this road before, guy. Let me tell you something. This is where you are. You're going to hit this. You're going to hit this place, and you're going to have to make a decision. You either do this or do that. If you keep looking at the past 3 chances you've had. Hate to tell you, but you're going to pick the wrong one, and one of us is not going to be here after that.
That's so true. That's so true.
So sometimes you've got to just, hey, look, man, this is just the cold, unvarnished truth.
Yeah.
This is where you are. This is where you need to be. What are you going to do to close the gap? And so there are times when you look yourself in the mirror and say, there are a lot of people that don't like me, and right now I don't like myself. Why don't I like myself? And it's like there's a movie out there. What was it? It's an old one, Man of the House, and got up there, and this one woman said, "Oh, you don't like?" He said, "You don't drink?" He says, "No, I don't." He says, "Well, why not?" He said, "Why not? You don't like to?" He says, "Oh no, I love to, man. It's the other people that's couldn't take it." So you got to get to the point where, okay, why is it that I'm having all these issues and my problems and everything else? And the second thing is, you never fix a problem that you don't own. If it's always somebody else's fault, it's always going to be somebody else's fault, but it's your life.
Wow. True.
So
that's so true.
So if there's something out there you don't like, do something about it. And I don't mean get up vocal, stand on a table, or go disrupt somebody's meeting or whatever, but they're just kind of like, wait a minute, guys, where are we going with this? Do you understand? Do you understand what the impact of this is going to be?
So, do you think that, especially when we talk about the country, do you think that the gospel is spreading and people are being aware about the gospel nowadays?
You know, I don't know the source, but I read the other day there was a survey that was done, and just the index numbers. 1.6 was what they gave. It was about church attendance, and 1.6 were the elderly. And you know, I'm not there yet, but I'm just one of the baby boomers. But they said the elderly was 1.6. However, the Gen Zers were 1.9.
Wow.
So there may be, and I certainly hope there is oh gosh, the word escapes me at the moment. But you've got but you know, it's one of those where you've got a revival in the country, and I heard that Bible sales were up for whatever reason. I'll take it, you know. So I'm hoping that some of the seekers out there are actually finding, you know, actively trying to find where they need to be.
My question, what I want to ask is, I have read it about it that the foundation of this country has been led with the prayers and so many men of God. I don't know, that's so powerful.
Now, the problem you've got is there's a lot of revision of the history. And, you know, it's kind of funny. I was talking to a Russian one time, and I said, so tell me your history. He says, well, we have a pretty good idea of where we're going. It said, but the history is always changing. And, you know, that was an interesting thing because if you, and Napoleon said it himself, that, you know, history is a body of lies that historians agree upon, you know, so, you know, it's one of those things where you've got to be careful when you look at the history and you look at the analysis that's done or the who authors it and that sort of thing. That's why I said I curate my sources so that I'm familiar with who they are and what their worldview is and everything else. But you know, this country was set up by, and if you look at New England especially, I mean, Roger Williams set up Rhode Island. He did that because he didn't like the Puritans, so he moved out to his own place and did his own thing. Connecticut, Thomas Hooker, same thing. You know, so it was Harvard. Founded by John Harvard. I mean, you know, he was as an institution of trained ministers, and you know, so this. And if you look at the state mottos and everything else, a lot of them thank God for the establishment and everything else, and they recognize divine providence and the hand that it played. I think that in a lot of cases, if you want to move to a secular state, you lose all that, and you lose a great deal. Especially, you know, I gave a talk one time. It was a sermon at church on it was for July 4th, and I talked about the Black Robe Regiment from the Revolution, and the ministry was actively involved with the Revolution. And one British general said, "I feel like I've got a regiment of men in black robes, you know, opposing me, you know." And But those were tough times, and I mean, those were tough people. I mean, they spent a lot of time on circuit. They did a lot of circuit riding. They still do that in some countries in South America. They're in cars right now, but you would have a preacher that would ride from church to church to church on Sunday. He'd start early in the morning and be done by maybe by the evening. But those were tough guys back then. And you've got to, you know, I think in a lot of cases, you know, when you start with a secular thing, you just say, well, we're going to start from now. But the one point I wanted to bring out was what makes us different from a lot of different countries is we hold these truths to be self-evident, that our rights are granted by our Creator. Big difference. Not a king, not a government, not a president. We are, you know, unalienable rights, you know, and they can't be changed. They can't be, but endowed by our Creator. And that is an important thing to remember. And that's why a lot of people don't like the Constitution, or in a lot of cases, because it limits what the government can do, which is what it was intended to do. That's why they have the Bill of Rights and the different things that play into that. So that's why, so I just always look back on that. You know, our rights as Americans come from God. And I don't care who's in office. You know, there are two times, you know, if you go back and you look at Romans 13, Paul says, yes, you should obey the authorities, because it shows good order, it shows discipline, and you're setting the example for everybody else. However, there are two times you shouldn't do that. One, when they tell you to do something that's forbidden, and two, when they forbid you to do something that's directed. And I used to, and it was really great, knowing the Bible and knowing what it meant and knowing how to apply it in my life, and applying those guardrails kept me out of a lot of trouble, in the Air Force, because you'd have all these people that would walk up. I got this really great deal. Okay, tell me about it. And what I would do is, I was a big believer in corporate decision making. I made, if I had to make decisions on my own, I would. But I like to get a group together of all the stakeholders. And for instance, guy wanted to do a 10K run. Well, we had a number of different things there that were. We had since 9/11. We have 3 F-15s from the Florida National Guard that were there, and what they would do is they would intercept aircraft that diverted from their flight plan, and they'd either get them back on or they'd take them down, and ours was the busiest one in the country. We had the most hits of anybody in the country. That was there. We also had F-16s there, so we had that to worry about, and just a few other things that were scattered throughout. So anyway, I had our attorney there. I had our security forces commander. I had had about 5 or 6 people there, and I said, okay, why don't you lay out what your proposal is? And he walked in and he said, okay, do you have anything in writing? Okay, tell you what we're going to do. If you send me a written, kind of just a written point paper if you want, and that sort of thing, we'll take a look at it and we'll tell you what we can and can't do from a security standpoint, from our standpoint here. And there are a lot of people. Well, you could do this, you could do that. Well, this is what the guidance says. And it's the same thing. It is written.
That's it.
And the other thing was, it's kind of like, okay, we've got in Miami is huge, and it's got a bunch of it's definitely a multinational community. So Cuba's about 90 miles from Key West, and it's only a 2-hour drive up there. How do I know how many people? If you have a 10K run open to the public, I mean, what do you want to do?
That's so true.
So that kind of died. But once again, knowing the Bible and knowing how to study it and having those guardrails out there transfers quite easily into either public or private sector jobs too. Every corporation that I've worked for has always had, your company policies, and in manufacturing, we had our manufacturing, we had our different manufacturing guides and, bills of material and everything else. And you followed that unless you went through the change process as driven by, as expected. But,
one thing I really, like you said about the history of America, that this country, I was reading, and like I said, I know that the foundation of this country has been led by the great man of God, by the prayers. And why did I ask this question is because recently I was checking my Twitter, and there was a guy who, I don't want to take his name, but he tweeted something very interesting about, this question he raised, it that why people are now, a lot of people are going church and holding Bible because the president says so. They are following what he says so. So that's weird. I mean, okay, that's why I asked you this question, because, and then in that tweet, there was a huge comments and debates are going on. But the question he asked, people are thinking. A lot of people have, you are right, but you are not wrong. So that's why I ask you that are we really encountering with the Lord, or we are just doing because somebody says so?
Well, that's a point that everybody's got to ask in their, am I you can do it in your daily life. Am I living the way that the Lord wants me to live, as expressed through the Bible? And, if you're just carrying it because somebody tells you to, I mean, better than the guys that had Mal's little red book, I got it here, man. Yeah.
That's true. When did you feel in your heart that, hey, I want to just be close to God? Because a lot of people, when you were in the job and you were in the time when, let's just say 9/11, it was darkest time. I mean, it was so depressed and so bad things happen. And how did you deal with that? And when your life transformed, and when you think that, hey, I really need God in my life, when did it happen? When you start reading the Word and you really want to come close to God?
I tell you what, it happened around 2004.
Oh, wow.
And what happened then, and it's one of those things, sometimes I didn't remember God and what He taught, but fortunately He never forgot about me. But what happened was I was in a squadron, and I was the deputy commander, and we went through an inspection. It did not turn out well, and so anyway, they fired the commander. He was a good friend of mine. We'd served together for years. Great guy, and just didn't happen. There were some bad decisions that were made, and it did not go well. So I thought, well, wonder who the next guy is going to be. Well, I didn't have to wait long, because about a week later, the general called me and said, "Congratulations, I think you've got the ability to do this job." And I'm like, okay. So anyway, it was a high stress job, and we had manpower shortages all over the place. I was filling about 3 positions. Our manning was about 60% because they kept saying, "Oh, we're going to close you, we're going to move you." Well, no, we're not. So nobody in their right mind would take a job under those conditions.
Wow.
So anyway, we were constantly, there's a lot of stress and everything, and and it caused stress at home. It caused stress with my relationships with different people and everything. And finally, one day, one time I was asleep. I'll never forget this. One of the steps in patrolling is called the leader's recon. And what you do is you've got a reconnaissance team with you. You'll go out there and you'll leave them you'll set them up in an area away from that's secure. Then you'll go forward with maybe 1 or 2 people. The smaller the better, but just at least 2. And you take a look at the objective to see what what it looks like on the ground versus what you've been told by intelligence or anything like that. Well, one time I was there, and one time I was asleep, and I'll never forget. Christ came and said, "We're going on a leader's recon. Come on."
Wow.
So I went out, and we
You
walked.
hear the voice, or you just?
Yeah, I heard the voice, and
wow.
So anyway, we walked out there, and he said, "Okay, take a look at the objective." And I looked out there, and it was awful. I mean, it was just terrifying. And he said, "If you continue down the path you've chosen, this is where you're going to wind up. This is what your life is going to look like." And so, I said, okay, enough's enough. And that's where you take that look in the mirror and say, I understand a lot of people don't like me. I don't like myself right now. What do I need to do? So, talk to my pastor, started praying really hard. I mean, every day. Started reading the Bible every day. Went on a religious retreat, and that was great. Met a lot of people that I still keep in contact with today. And but the most important thing was read the Bible every day. I would just close the door in my office at lunch. Didn't care how busy I was. Didn't care what was going on. That's my time with the Lord. Get it done. And and after a while, you start to absorb that. And after you start, and I'd listen to a lot of sermons, from different pastors that I trusted, and you can. And it just, it's seeing how they handled things and seeing how they used the Bible to exemplify how you handle situations and everything helped out a lot. But the first thing you learn is it's not about me, it's about everybody else. Dump that ego and everything else. And I never had much of one, but boy, after that, I just said, nope, it's all about you guys. What do we need to do? And it just enabled me to more fully empower and that sort of thing. But that was what turned me around. And there are a lot of people that, sorry guys, I just don't do that anymore. Sorry guys, I don't, but we're not doing that and all that other good stuff. Bottom line was this: I bumped into my old commander one time, and we were together at a funeral, and he said, "You know something? You've really changed."
Wow.
Now, somebody they hadn't seen in a while. That's
wow.
So that's the power of the Bible, and I would like to think that it's a good change. I'd like to think that it's set me on the path to be where I am today, and but the thing is, and there was a radio station in Houston when I worked there. I used to listen to, and the broadcaster would sign off every day with, "Don't ever let anybody steal your joy."
Oh, wow.
I thought,
nice.
That's interesting. Joy, steal your joy. How do you define joy? And what I learned, especially if you read Philippians 4:10 through 13, Paul said, I've been full, I've been hungry, I've been rich, I've been poor, but I've survived it all, and I can do all things because the Christ who strengthens me. And that was always in my mind when I deployed overseas, because you never knew what you were going to find or anything else like that. But the thing about it was but getting back to it, you learn that, Lord, whatever situation I'm in, let me see you, not the situation. And a lot of people say, man, why me? Well, I always ask, well, what now, Lord? How do we move out of this? What do we need to do?
And it's not easy.
No, it's not.
Easy.
And lots of times, the higher you go, the less you can afford to, oh man, I'm just scared to death. You probably are, so is everybody else, but you've got to be able to move. And what I learned was that, if you get out and start moving, you get the motivation because things start happening. It's kind of like pushing your car. It's like I said, once you overcome the inertia of the vehicle, you can push it anywhere you want. But if you get out and start moving, and that's, and in a lot of cases, the Bible, gives you plenty of examples on how to do that,
But when you bombarded with the doubts, and because when you are in a faith journey, there will be a time when you will be bombarded with so many doubts comes in your mind. How you deal with that? If somebody is watching us right now who want to start his faith journey, and he is bombarded with the lies or with the doubts and with the questions that why God is not helping me, why God had left me. People keep saying that, and people do say sometimes that God is not working. Where is God? Where is God in this situation? These kind of questions come in your mind, and I am very sure that you must be faced those questions in your mind once in your life. How you deal with that?
Well, I always went back and say, what's God trying to teach me? And he sent, in my career, one of the reasons that they pulled me back in was what I did in the private sector was I walked in and created world-class organizations. In other words, if you had a manufacturing process that was getting ready to go through the floor, I'd walk in, do the analysis, train the people and everything else, and you'd have one that was great. After that, I also was an examiner for the Baldrige Award, which is a National Quality Award. I also was neck deep in ISO and different things like that. So, but the thing about it is, you've got to be, if you're having doubts, you've got to be able to ask, okay, do the analysis. First off, why am I doubting? And people are always going to have doubts. We're human. We're not perfect. But you've got to look back on how God has affected your life in the past. And what is he trying to teach you right now? When they pulled me back in, I used to go to, I went to 22nd. Well, first off, got the squadron turned around down here. We started deploying, started meeting our requirements, and started passing inspections and audits and all that other good stuff. Then when I rotated out, I went to 22nd Air Force. And they had 13 at that time. I had 13 units that were none of them were located where I lived. So I was on the road a lot. But you learned that okay, guys, we've all got the one book. We work from this. And there were people that had doubts about it and everything else. Well, let's go in here and let's take a look. What are your doubts? And where are you lost? Or and I used to tell my folks, I said, I'm not here to interpret everything. I expect you guys to be the experts in your different areas. But if you've got an issue with something that you don't understand, bring it on in. We'll read it and we'll talk about it. If I don't understand it, I'll get an expert on the phone and they can explain it to us. And I know plenty of them, so we can do that. And it's the same way with if you've got doubts, read it yourself. Talk to somebody you trust. Find a Bible believing church with a pastor and say, can we talk about this? Find an expert. Something, guys. This is a walk. This is a journey. It's kind of like I talked about world-class organizations a minute ago. You hit world class. If you're recognized as a world class organization, guess what? All your competition is going to be headed toward you next year. So you've got to be constantly improving. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Wow. And that's the way it is with Christianity. You're not going to fully know everything until you're standing there. You're standing there with the Lord going, and He's going to look at it, and you go,
yeah.
So if you've got doubts, lots of times there's a lot of stuff out there, but you've got, like I said, you've got to be judicious in who you listen to and what their worldview is and how they present it. So find someone who's definitely, who you trust and who you believe gives you the Bible truth for that.
So when when 9/11 happens, I know that was the darkest time and most stressed time. What hit your mind when you heard that news, and what was going in your mind and in your team and in your personal and your spiritual life? Did it impact your life as well when you heard that news that this is happening and we are under attack and these things are happening? What was your first response?
Well, I was working in Houston at the time, and this is really kind of funny. My unit was up in was at the air base right outside of St. Louis Scott Air Force Base in Muscuda, Illinois.
Okay.
And so anyway, I was flying out on the 10th. Well, I got bumped. So I thought, okay. So I was flying out on the 9th. So anyway, on September 10th, I got on the plane in Lambert Field in St. Louis and flew out. And so anyway, I got into work a little bit late, but the next day I walked in and everybody's watching TV and they said, "Hey, this plane just flew into the World Trade Center and somebody had it on TV." I'm going, "That shouldn't happen." So what do you mean? I said, "That is all restricted area downtown. They do not have overflights, at that altitude." Well, all of a sudden a second one hits. I said, guys, let me help you with inferential statistics. Once is an incident, twice is a pattern. So anyway, the boss knew that nothing was going to happen. So he just said, we're just going to all go home today. And so anyway, everybody went home. And my first thing was I sat there and I picked up a few things at the store and everything else, but I went home and I said, "Lord, what are you trying to show us? What are we doing here? What are you doing here?" And it's one of those things where I never doubted his goodness. I never doubted that he loved us. I never doubted that he only intended the best for us. But but if you read the Bible, there are some times where the Israelites just got hammered, and why?
Yeah.
Going to listen to me now? That sort of thing. And so I looked at it, from that standpoint also. What should we be learning from this? And unfortunately, I've been doing that since I was a kid, just analyzing the decision making, and you find out there's some tools out there where you can, you can do it quantitatively. But it's but you've got to understand that, that God is a sovereign God. He's going to do what he's going to do. And you may think you know why, but it's kind of like when I retired, people are always asking, "What are you going to do?" I said, I don't know, but a job in downtown San Antonio is not even on a screen. What did I end up doing? I decided, that, okay, I want to give back I want to give back and everything. So I said, okay, I'll become a security officer at a hospital. I understand how those work. So anyway, looked at 3 different hospitals, wound at one downtown San Antonio. Yeah. So anyway, somebody said, "Well, I thought you said," "Yeah, well, that just proves God has a sense of humor." But great group of folks, great mission. There was a real need down there. So it helped. And 4 months later, I was a supervisor and, boom.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a quick questions. I posted on my social media that you are coming, and a lot of people ask me some questions to ask you. So I'm going to just 2-3 questions I have taken. It's going to be a good thing. And trust me, guys, it's going to be a good question. So one question is that what did prayer look like when nothing was changing?
What did prayer look like?
When nothing was changing.
I just touched on it a minute ago that we have a sovereign God. The other thing that I've always been told is that God may not come when you want him, but he's always right on time.
Yeah.
And it may not just be that time. And lots of times, it's like I tell folks, there's no and then there's not now. So you've got to be able to discriminate between the two. And the Bible says pray fervently. And the prayers of a good man attain much. So, it's one of those things you just have to keep doing that. The other thing is that prayer focuses your mind on what you're doing and how to approach it also. In other words, God will help, but you've got to be the moving force behind that. And, I have found that when I'd start praying and I'd start thinking, you just think about, okay, I'm forgetting. For instance, I was in a country and we were. They told us that they'd run out of aggregate. Well, you need aggregate. You need sand and you need gravel so you can make concrete. So anyway, we were going, what are we going to do? Well, there was a river that, so I'm sitting there, Lord, you've got to help me lead this. And, it was kind of like one of those things where this voice came back, well, you've got the training, why don't you do it, So I started looking around, I said, wait a minute. I looked at an aerial photograph and there was a river that ran right near the town. And it had a lot of switchbacks. Well, when you have a lot of curves in a river, what it does is it deposits sand and gravel every time it turns. So I thought, I can quarry this stuff, but I don't have it. So anyway, I was driving, I went through the back of the town one time, and there's this bulldozer parked there. And I said,
what?
Well, yeah, what is going on here? So anyway, I went over and talked to the operator, and I said, hey, I was talking to him in the best Spanish I had at the time, and I said, but he understood. I said, look, I've got some. We're building the school, and I need some sand and gravel. He said, and you've got a bulldozer. What can I do to, can we do something about that? He said, if you buy the fuel, I'll do it. So I just pulled the money. What we used to do is we had the ft.Skie matching fund, and we knew that we were going to have things that we hadn't bought or anything else. And what I would do is I'd pass the hat, then I'd hand it to my first sergeant and say, "You figure out what the money is," and then I would match whatever they collected. And lots of times it was small stuff. Well, we need more PVC fittings. Okay, run to the hardware store and get them. Here's the money. That sort of thing. And But it worked out in that case. I had 5 different places. I had 5 different classes of sand, 3 different classes of gravel. I already had my material inspectors there. They were sent down there with me. So they were I said, test it all. Make sure it's good and make sure it's what we can use and everything. But everybody's wondering, how are they going, man? How are they continuing? Well, we got plenty of Portland cement. We just needed the aggregate, man.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of cases, you don't understand and your prayers haven't been answered, but, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. You've got to persist.
They will definitely be an answer, One day it will be answer, will definitely come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next question is, was there a season when God felt silent in your life?
Yeah. And it was what I did. People always ask, I feel like God has grown far from me. Well, who moved? And, you recognize that and you say, like I said before, I said, God always remembered me even when I didn't remember him. And it was one of those things where you learn, well, it's not that bad. It's not that. Well, after a while, you just get to the point of, where they call it the Overton window, and it's a term of what people will accept. And there are ways that you can do different psychological things and different actions to shift that window either left or right, either no, I don't like this, or yes, I will.
Yeah.
And if you're moving that internal window toward the, hey, this is okay, well, guess what, guy? Pretty soon you're maxed out on the okay range and everything goes. And that's where I got grabbed in 2004, and the Lord said, come on, we're going to go out here and look at your future. And so anyway, the question again was
there a season when God felt silent?
Oh yeah. And it wasn't that he fell silent, he was still there. It's just that I didn't pick up on the message. But after that, oh yeah, loud and clear.
Cool. So next question comes is, how do you stay disciplined when motivation dies? That's a nice question. I like that.
Yeah.
How you being disciplined, because a lot of time, like I say, that sometimes you are high and sometimes you feel like, oh man, I don't want to do this, and it's very hard to remain in that discipline, that routine. How you make yourself being disciplined in that?
The first, it's like I tell folks, the first battle you have to win every day is the battle of the blankets, and that's, and if you get moving, well, first off, I set up a routine. So I've got a system that supports what I want to do. I get up in the morning and I've got certain supplements that I take at certain times. I've got, I've got one that I take, and then I take one then I take some later, and then I've got my pre-workout supplements. Take those, go in, do a pretty heavy workout. Then I'll go in and I'll read a devotional before I do the workout. And then afterwards I'll go do my Bible study. And then after that I'll go walk the dog. Okay, boom, I'm done. Now, what do I do to support that? One is I journal every day. So if I don't do it, it's kind of like, okay, guy, come on, you've got to be consistent. Second thing is I set up systems that support each other. I know, boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What am I going to do? Get up, go shave and brush your teeth, go get changed, go get go take your supplements, go read your devotional, go work out, go stretch, work out, boom, then go from there. And the motivation, first off, activity drives the motivation. So like I said, the first battle is the battle of the blankets. Man, it's nice and warm in here, but I got things to do. And the other thing I do is I plan my week, and every day I've got a card, or I've got a card that says this is all I'm doing today. So when I'm laying there in bed going, man, I got a little stuff to do, and boom, you're up and you're moving. And psychologically, that helps prepare you too. So but activity itself, if you're not motivated to read the Bible, go in and read your devotional. Go in and read, I don't have time. Okay. Go in and read a chapter of the Bible. It doesn't take that long. Doesn't take that long at all. Pick out a verse or two that apply to your situation and that day, and how it will help you, and go from there. So motivation, to stay disciplined, you've just got to recognize that you just do it every day. After a while, I've heard that it takes 21 days to set a good habit. It takes 90 days to make it part of your lifestyle.
Wow, say it again. This is powerful. 21
days to build a habit. Do it for 21 days straight. Get a list together. Did I do this today? Wow. Yeah. I'm a big believer in checklists. That puts you about 90. And the CIA told me that puts you about 90 ahead of 99% of the people in the world. Why? Because you've got a plan. You know what you're going to. Okay, this is my morning routine. Bam, 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 bam. Boom. This is my Then, but 21 days to set a habit. 90 days of actively practicing it to make it a lifestyle. I don't worry about am I going to read my Bible today or not. No, that's a given. I've got to do that. That's like eating breakfast. Eating lunch. So if you just condition yourself, like I said, activity drives motivation. Motivation is nah.
Yeah, it's like
that's for Jocko Willink. I'll see you later.
All right, the last question, which is I think a very important question especially for all the men and all the boys or adults. What is maturity? How maturity comes in a man? And if this is specific for all the men, how a boy or an adult learn to be mature and start seeing himself as a mature.
A lot of it depends upon your you won't say level of maturity, but that's what we're trying to define. A lot of it depends upon your experience. A lot of it depends on where you get your information to develop your worldview. And a lot of it depends on actually what you do. So in my case, I've always found it a lot more profitable. This is what people tell my wife, because she said she met one of the guys I went to high school with, and she said, "Oh yeah, he was something else." I'd moved to town, and I joined there were high school fraternities, so I joined one, and they said, "Yeah, we picked him up for his grades, but we got a whole lot more besides that." And I ended up being the outstanding fraternity member of the year or something like that from the county, and. But the thing about it was, they said, he'd always just start doing something, and everybody's over here trying to figure out what to do. And, I'm out there doing something because I knew what the next steps ought to be. Let's just get it prepped, and hopefully somebody will fall in behind me and we'll get it done. And it's the same thing when we do a lot of things at church. Yeah. What's the thing nobody likes to do? Wash dishes. Well, great, I'm there. No competition, but it's got to be done. Yeah. And so anyway, once you do that, everybody else, we got to do this. It goes from there. Maturity, there are a number of things. First off, control your emotions. Not everything is in a, first off, when a situation happens, like I said, don't think, why me? Think, what's actually going on here? The other thing is, be very judicious in how you approach it. In other words, I don't complain a lot. You just get out and get it done. Complaining is not going to help you.
Wow.
So just get out and get it done. The other thing is, make sure you're on the right path, and that's why I use the Bible. And if you've got if you're in an industrial situation like that, you've always got a guidance you can use. But if you're looking for maturity, there was a challenge out there, and I've got a book on it. It's called the Influential Life, and what he said, and it's got it broken out in there. There are 31 proverbs, and there are about 100, and I think there are 150 psalms.
Yeah.
So read 5 psalms a day and read a proverb every day. And the proverbs, they're one of the wisdom books for a reason.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they teach you a lot about life. They teach you a lot about how to handle things like not co-signing for somebody's loan because of your bud or something that.
That's so true.
So anyway, to become mature, first off, just control your emotions. Everybody's been through this at one time or another. It's hit you. Don't complain about it. Just kind of look forward and say, okay, with what I've got, what can I do? Okay. If I don't have the resources, who can help? And I don't mean just, hey man, I'm in over my head, can you pay this bill? Well, no. You've got to dig yourself out on that. And the other thing is, Lord, what are you trying to show me? Well, he's probably trying to show you that if it's a financial thing, maybe you ought to get control of your finances. If it's an interpersonal relationship thing, maybe you ought to control your emotions and not say some of the things you do or gossip about people or things like that. Maybe it's something. Maybe somebody has the wrong impression about you. See what you can do to work that out. Lots of times I'll just walk in and say, hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Can we?
Yeah.
I don't think we got off to a good start. Why don't we restart this? And I'd probably, because I don't understand where you came from. And in a lot of cases, you've got to, before you can develop a position, maybe you ought to understand where the other person's coming from. And
that's so true.
And, it's one of those things I've seen a lot these days. You have different people that, I like to get the facts together, and I like them to be facts. And that's where I asked one of my nephews about that. He's a multimillionaire now. He's just gangbusters. But I asked him, I said, tell me. I said, I bump into these kids these days, and they tell me that, well, this is my truth. What are they? You're always entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. I mean, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, well, yeah, but that's their truth. And you got to realize in a lot of cases, people have their identity and people have their experience, and they think that trumps everything in the world. And guys, there are still basic facts. I always tell people that there are 3 laws that'll kill you. That the law, disobeying the law of God, disobeying the law of profit loss, and disobeying the law of gravity. I mean, the guy said, really? I said, well, there are more than that. I said, yeah, but they all come back to that same root.
Yeah.
So, if you're mature, if you want to display maturity, if you want to actually act in a mature manner, you learn to control your emotions. You learn to okay, what is this person actually saying to me? What are they trying to go from there, and then see if you can meet somewhere in the middle. See what you can agree upon first, and then see where you differ, and maybe you can work those out.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's my way or the highway, and here's a map,
I understand that. I mean, like, a lot of people ask me this question, and I was like, okay, I'm going to ask this question because, being mature is also like, exactly, control your emotions and know your responsibilities. And Bible teaches God about being responsible in a different chapters, different books, all the books, New Testament, Old Testament, every book teaches that being responsible, taking responsibility is like, it's like a God-given work to the Adam, to the man, that you have to take care of everything. You are the head of the house, so you have to better take care of everything. Yeah, I mean, so I'm just taking your thoughts in. So one of the question that comes mostly in people who watch us and who listen to us, that there's a huge juggling happening between work life and the spiritual life. Like, how to balance both the thing at the same time. I mean, like a lot of people I asked on my social media, I post this question and I was amazed. It's just a poll question where you ask question and get the poll. So a lot of people, I think 60-70% people were like juggling with this question there,
Yeah.
with this problem that, hey, my job work style is like I work all night, or some of them say I work in a paramedics and I have to be on the job all the time. I don't get time to read the word. I don't get time to spend time and go to church or spend time with my family. So how to balance that? Because I know that, like you said, you are also in that position before. It's a stressful job where you were. How did you balance your life? And maybe you can give some tips to people.
I used the available time. If I had 15 minutes that I could crop together, that I could block together, and I had 30 minutes for lunch, and that was when the Lord and I met. And it was great because it was midday, so it's kind of like, okay, I can do a midday correction for if I've drifted off here. So you just look for those little scraps of time. And I know that as a paramedic and as different jobs out there that, you're on 24, or something like that. I mean, I was also a fire marshal, for 13 years. And, fought that all the time because, because we worked 24 on, 2 off.
Yeah.
So there were sometimes there were family issues and everything else that you didn't know, and you had to, and we'd help work those out, do what we could. And, but the work life, the work prayer balance is just, it's horrendous because, I'll give you an example. When I was at the hospital, my shift began at 6. I would have to leave the house by 5 because it was about a 35-minute drive down there, and then I wanted to make sure that I had time to look over what had happened the shift before and read anything that was in the book that we needed to do.
So you leave at 5 in the morning?
Yeah.
And you wake up at what time?
I used to wake up around 2:30 or so.
And
Why?
you sleep at what time?
Because there were 2 things I wanted to do. One, I wanted to go do the Bible study. Second thing is I wanted to go in, since COVID was happening and everything else, and I wanted we had an extra room, so I just piece by piece started building my own gym, and didn't take a lot, but anyway, one is I wanted to make sure I did my Bible study, and the second thing was I wanted to make sure that I was stretched, that I was loose, that I was ready to go, because lots of times I'd arrive at the hospital and say, hey, we need you over in the ER right now. So it's kind of like show up and boom, go. Yeah. So, but it's one of those things where they both prepared me for the day ahead. They both prepared me for the day ahead, and it's like I told them, I can't say that one was more important than the other. I think the Bible was the most important part of that. Because why? Because you run into a bunch of people that have weird outlooks on things, and they were actually working with you, And the thing about it was, I was a big believer in policy. If the hospital sets a policy, it's there because they're trying to reduce liability, improve patient care, or just ensure the smooth functioning of the facility. There's no reason why you need to create your own or why you need to ignore it. And lots of times I'd get in the crosshairs of, hey, look, time out, this is the policy. There was one in particular that I'd carried around in my wallet, said, would you like to read it, just the highlighted parts? I mean, yeah, I can read it to you. No.
Yeah.
So it helped, but I can understand the work biblical, the work and religion. And I've read the Bible on airplanes, on planes, in airports, everywhere else. And sometimes it's a real conversation starter because people just, are you a chaplain? No, I'm a civil engineer. Really?
Yeah, I have experienced that. So yeah, I understand. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot more to talk about, but I think we are running out of time now.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, but I really want to do a second part with the Skie. If you want, just let me know in the comment. We'll re-invite you and we can have a more conversation about so many things. Thank you so much, Skie, for being on this podcast. And I believe there's going to be a blessing for many, and it's going to be a real reset for a lot of people to, reset their focus, reset their life. And come close to God. And thank you so much, guys, for watching this podcast. I believe this is gonna be for me, it's a blessing, and I've learned a lot of things, and probably will call ft.Skie again, and we'll have him on our podcast again. Right? Thank you so much, and take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.